order on. So big welcome to today's topic in week 4, where we are looking at families, we're looking at society, we're looking at childhood and youth development and how they are important. And then one of the big ways in which you're going to demonstrate your knowledge in these subjects we study each week is in the assignments. So assignment 1, task 1 is coming up. We're asking you to look at a sociological theory, and the 3 big theories are structure, helping society and schools; conflict, describing that there are pressures and tensions due to different amounts of resource, finance, different social groups that compete with one another. And then there is also the way in which symbols and literature and interaction socially, symbolic interactionism, can shape the way people interact. So they're the 3 big theories. And I notice that Catherine is looking at conflict theory, in which things don't always go well. Different people have different amounts of wealth, status, different identity or counter-identity if they don't fit in, so that they can take up becoming more wild-minded, criminally minded, or whatever they see as the counter-identity that helps them out if they don't fit in different distributions of power. So I really think that's very valuable in classroom, because you do have 20-30% really come from upper middle class, going to do well, things are going to go well, but then you have a percentage of your students may not fit in, and then they're going to be battling and different culture and background. So I think that's a great area to explore, Catherine, that has practical implication. Chris, I like the work that you're doing as well, where you're looking at self-identity, symbolic interaction, and you're looking at the peer group influence. And I'm reminded in the lunch group or in the morning tea group, you've got different peers, and if those peers are from a upper middle class group, they'll take you in one direction. If they're from a real conflicting group who are wanting to take up shoplifting or something, they'll take you in another direction. So your career ambitions will be different. Parents can take you in different directions. And so I think that whole idea of identity, what shapes identity, listening to students about what's shaping their identity. Great topic, Chris. I think you'll do well. Nicole's looking more at structures, and so Spencer and Durkheim on structures as well. And then Matthew's also looking at functionalism, and I love this work from Merton on different kinds of individuals. Some conform and fit in, they follow the rituals, and then there are others who are a bit creative and innovative, and others who really want to be rebels and reject social standards, and they might even come from families or social groups that challenge the social standards and promote others. And you might even find Indigenous groups or particular socioeconomic groups might want to propose a different type of standard. I know there were some back-to-earth countercultural people that I met with once, and they had totally different views. One group I met in New Zealand, they didn't wear shoes. They'd go to, that would be challenging in the middle of winter, wouldn't it? I asked them about these students. What's it? No, we feel, shoes is just tying us into culture. We need to be free from culture. We don't wear shoes. All of these different groups can be there. Now, of course, we're encouraging you to combine this with keeping a diary or a journal, and you can put in the date of the actual date, like today, the 14th of the 8th, 2023, and you might reflect on year 8, or you could put in a reflection on year 8, and you might go back and reflect on what happened then, and you can build something of your own life story. It's fascinating to think as to how your life story has been shaped through the preschool years, through the primary school years, through the high school years. It's amazing what happened. Little town that I lived in for quite a while, St Leonard's in Tasmania. Peter Sculthorpe was a student there, And one day he decided he would take up piano lessons. And when he went into piano lessons, and I went to the same piano in the same little place there, he went home, and after the piano lesson, he started writing his own tunes. And I asked my wife about this, and she said she did the same, but she discovered there wasn't much reward from that. With Peter Sculthorpe, when he went back a week later, he got the cane for wasting time writing little tunes when he should have been practicing the scales. And this went on for a few weeks, and they wanted to discourage him from writing his own tunes, etc., because really it's about learning the scales, fitting within the functions of the school and within the structures of the school. But anyway, he continued in his rebellious ways, and he became one of Australia's great composers, perhaps one of the greatest composers in Australia, because he didn't fit in with what the teachers were wanting him to do. And so it's interesting, this whole idea of you set up a structure, get the students to do it, you try and squeeze out creativity and originality, but students will sometimes want to be creative and free, Montessori-like. And so these tensions are very, very interesting. And in your own journal writing, we know about this because he kept a journal, he wrote about these things. In your own journal writing, you might find tensions in your own life and your insights into education. And even now, every year and every school you go into, you could write each day and week about what you observe, what works, what doesn't work. Catherine, what have you found about observing schools and what works and what doesn't work in schools?
That's a big question. Yeah, I think a level of freedom is really important in schools.
Oh.
Yeah, freedom and choice. Yeah, just the like having that personal help them feel valued, but also the like personal connection to the work that they're doing or the activity, and that like intrinsic motivation.
And we sometimes call this agency, by giving children agency, helping them make choices. And as parents give agency to children, that's quite different to another family that might be quite strict and imposing views on. So these are all things to explore in your sociological framing paper, where you select a theological approach and theorist, you consider what's important in their theory, and you reflect on what's a theory or theorist that's going to tell you something about your own life journey. What's it going to tell you about the journey of the children in the classrooms where you are, and how a better understanding of them can make you a better teacher who can enjoy the experience of teaching and engaging with students a lot more. Sometimes it's really challenging when you face children who challenge you to a certain extent. Even today, I was talking to a primary school child who was asking about infinity, and said, is there such thing as infinity? And what happens if we get to infinity? And what about infinity plus one, infinity plus two? And this was middle of primary school, this child. And I said, oh, you could ask your mum. But we talked about it. And we talked about, is infinity a concrete concept, or is it something that stretches our imagination rather than being a concrete concept? And we had a great conversation for, about 10 minutes or more on the whole idea of infinity. But it challenged me. I don't know. What do I think about infinity? And so task one, your sociological framing paper, really helps you to think more deeply there about the classes you're in. Nicole, what have been your experiences about classes, observing children, observing what's happening in schools? What are your thoughts?
I've been particularly thinking about the structural functionalism approach, and we still do have some structure. We still sing the national anthem at the beginning of our assemblies. There still are structures that we still maintain. So we do say we'd like our children to have freedom, but we still set up certain structures to fit in with society or build up that sense that they do belong to a society.
Yeah, like that. So you fit in with the school society, you fit in with the classroom society. And when you sing the national anthem, you're showing a commitment to your nation, a commitment to your city, a commitment to the school that's singing it together. We're united in affirming this national anthem. And then I like what you say about the very structure of singing this, as saying that there's a commitment to the structures that have been given that help us. Yeah. Further thoughts, Nicole?
I was reflecting one of the things actually that I put in my assignment is the structures that are put on us by advertising campaigns as well, like the Life Be In It campaign gave a structure for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so Life Be In It is promoting exercise. It's promoting certain diet that is meant to be healthy. It's promoting sunscreen, but it's also promoting fitting in with others. There's a sort of social connection where when you do the right thing by exercising, dieting, wearing sunscreen and a hat, slip, slop, slap, you're actually saying, hey, I'm going to stand with society doing the right thing. And then you have the counterculture conflict who are saying, I'm not going to wear a hat. I'm not going to wear sunscreen. I'm going to drink fizzy, sugary drinks that are going to have lots of caffeine in them. And so it's quite interesting. Counterculturals could be present in your classroom. And that's a challenge to the teacher. What happens when you've got these countercultural kids who are seeing they're getting more mileage? Because if you're number one in family, so family position, so hands up those people here tonight who are number one in the family, firstborn. So I'm firstborn. Yeah, Chris is firstborn. Chris, tell us, what's it mean when you're number one in the family, firstborn? Are you going to be the rebel, or are you going to, what's going to be, or are you going to be the clown? What's going to be the pressure on you as the firstborn in the family, the eldest in the family? What sort of pressure's on you, Chris?
I haven't noticed anything, but recently I was speaking to someone at church and they were talking about they have two daughters and their youngest daughter is much more timid than their oldest daughter is more timid than the one recently born, because the first time they had a child, they hadn't had any children before, obviously, and they were much more caring of it, and they didn't let it run around and explore. So that's actually, you can see that now they're a couple of years old, the difference because of the way they were firstborn was treated, because they were like nervous of having a new baby. But I wouldn't say I have a little sister, but I don't see any difference in the way.
Yeah.
Being a bit different because she's a female and I'm a male, so definitely yeah.
Yeah, so you got gender there. Now, certainly there's a lot of research suggests that the eldest in the family is the one where the expectations are high. You get reward for doing good. That makes you a bit cautious. You're going to be more obedient. And then if you're the next one in line, if you're the third or fourth, often you can be the cutie and you get reward for that. And if you're born in the middle, you can't be the cutie and you can't be the firstborn. And so you've got to find something else. So being a clown or being disruptive or taking up drug taking or something, drug making or something like that, something that's a bit countercultural. So it's interesting. Position in family can have an effect. Now, all of these things can be written up in your journal, and they can be written up also in keeping a weekly journal where you think about the school teaching that you're doing, the observations that you make. And so I just typed in to Google Scholar and brought up a couple of articles. One of them was Identity Development as a Lens for Teacher Preparation. And this looked at the way in which a number of documents point to the ways in which social settings shape the sense of identity of teachers and students. So I thought that was quite a fascinating article that I started to read a bit of. And then another one, evidence in the way pre-service teachers keep a reflection log, a diary, a journal. That can help them because they reflect on their own lives. They reflect on what they observe of students. So all of that can be part of your task 1 assignment paper there. That can be quite useful as you want to include some of that. And the secret is to relate these reflections on real life, in your own life and in the schools you observe, to the theories that you get. And one of the really useful theories sources is Google Scholar. So if you go to Google Scholar and you put in position in family, first, youngest, eldest, on pedagogy and school outcomes, personality, identity, put in all of those sort of things that you're interested in. Google Scholar, and you can do the same with your resources in the college library online. You'll find some great resources that you could use there. And so the whole idea of identity and the way in which people develop identity, both as teachers and students, can be useful. And of course, in this first assignment, we're particularly focused on sociological theories and theorists and the way in which they help us to understand school teaching. So you could put in sociological theorist approaches. Theorists help us understand school teaching, understand pedagogy. That is the theory of practice in school teaching. So pedagogy, school teaching, practice. So you put in these sorts of things and it brings up lots of different theories, and you can explore those, get some great resources that can help you there. So one of the great things that you can find here as well is that when you click on citation, you've already got the citation. When you go through and click on the resource, then you'll also find that they'll reference other resources as well. And so you can go to the resources that they reference, and then the references that they use at the end of their resource, you can go to those as well. So I encourage you to interact with those. That'll make you better teachers. And then I encourage you to develop a philosophy of education in which you write down what are some of the theories you hold to, what are some of the views that you hold to, and then think about if you apply to a Christian school, it's good to have a Christian philosophy of education. If you apply to another school that's about a certain approach to learning, it's valuable to have a philosophy of education that fits in with that school and its approach. Now, today, this week, we're looking at family, and we're looking at age group, and we're looking at the ways in which different cultures, different backgrounds of families, different age as you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age through to high school, they're going to have different impacts. So while teachers rightly focus on the content of their teaching, so literature or maths, they can easily overlook the important social context in which teaching takes place in terms of the social world of the classroom and the school and the homes and the families from which the children and youth are raised, which can have a different culture, a different background, a different socioeconomic background that has different expectations, and the wider world of work that the children are aiming to go into. And one of the things that really stands out to me is that we often in school don't have a lot of knowledge of the different work opportunities. And imagine when you went through primary and secondary school, how many different work opportunities were you aware of? There was teaching, because there were teachers all around you. There were what your parents did, because you saw that around you. And there were a few uncles and aunts and relatives. So, Nicole, how many work experiences could you see around you when you're going through primary and secondary school? Were there many?
I wouldn't say there was as many as what there are today. Today seems to be a much wider range.
Yeah.
With IT services and so on. But
Yes.
the school I went to, which I include in the assessment, was generally a working class community school. So they
Yeah.
were all straight working class, demographic.
Yeah, because I know when I went to school, they encouraged us. You can either become a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter, something like that, or you can go on and become an accountant, or which is sort of most business people are accountants, according to some of the people around me. And some people can become lawyers, but none of you in my class are probably going to be bright enough to become lawyers. Maybe one of you might get into medicine, but most people won't, etc. And if you're dreaming of becoming an actor or dreaming of becoming a great musician or something, zero opportunity in that. So you might as well give up. So it's amazing how limiting school opportunities can be. Catherine, what was your schooling like in terms of opportunity to be told about all of the wonderful opportunities to become an actor, a film producer, a music director? Were there many opportunities, Catherine, for all of these opportunities there?
Yeah, I feel like in primary school it was quite limited, because it was just like you said, what your parents do, teachers, maybe a couple close friends and family, what they do. But then as I got into high school, I feel like it broadened a lot, into, like, we had specific subjects that could get you into different things, like the specific sciences and specific maths and all the arts. So going off into those specialties, I feel like broadened that, if that makes sense.
Well, very much so. And at different age levels, you've got different ways in which we can understand the different expectations that there are around children. And so it's important to realize these different possibilities at different age levels. And you can do a bit of research on these. And so I found articles such as transitions in primary school, transitions in high school, early adolescence, and they point out that culture and society shape our expectations. In primary school, we have certain expectations about jobs, about values, about traditions, about economic factors, about social expectations. And then as we move on through the various year levels, these can change. High school, it broadens out, even more opportunities. And then university, you suddenly discover there's all sorts of other opportunities. And that's one of the great values of going to a university or a tertiary college. Suddenly they tell you that there's a huge range of opportunities. And then the universities might tell you that if you explore what's available in another state of the country, or if you explore what's available in another country, that can open up opportunities as well. And some universities encourage exchange. I know one university encourages you go to Germany, study at university for free. And I've met a couple of students who've gone to Germany and Holland, studied at university for free, and they've learnt German and Dutch or English at the same time. And I met one from New Zealand, a farming girl, and she decided just out of the blue to apply to Harvard. And then she discovered that it cost $100,000 a year to study at Harvard. And she wrote back to them, sorry, I won't be able to study. Who can afford $100,000? And they said, well, tell us about yourself. And she said, well, there's 7 children in my family. We have no money. And the person at Harvard said, oh, we've invested a bit of money. We have 20 billion sitting here, and we're happy to pay your entire tuition plus your accommodation and everything. And so she went from being a struggling student in New Zealand to being fully paid studying at Harvard. And then I met her at Harvard, and she was telling me about all the guidelines. So there's opportunities left and right as you go through the journey. But when you're in primary and secondary, you don't always see all of those opportunities that are out there to be a film producer or to be a music director or, so really social settings all around you, peer groups all around you. I listened once to a talk by Jerry Harvey, and he said it was the group he went through at school and then into university that said, hey, you can set up businesses. And the whole peer group set up, every one of them, I think, set up businesses that flourished in Australia. So peer groups make the world of a difference. So culture and society influence how students aspire. That influences the efforts that they make as they go through. So it makes a huge difference. Now, of course, age groups don't just exist biologically. What we expect of different age groups are imposed by society and culture. So when a child is 2, 3, 4, we expect certain things of them. But in certain countries, they expect that you'll learn to read and write. And in other countries and cultures, reading and writing is not important. I remember seeing some year 2, 3, 4 children in Fiji who had machetes in their hand, who were chopping bits off trees in the market. And I thought, I don't know that if I had a preschool class with 2, 3, 4-year-olds, I'd be giving them machetes to use. I mean, that's culturally different. And as I was saying before, I visited a country place in the last couple of months. And before going to school, these primary school kids were pulling guns apart and putting them back together again. And you wouldn't do that in the centre of Sydney, I guess. They'd ask questions if you did that. So cultural expectations can be a huge difference in grades 2, 3, 4. Often there's an expectation that you'll be learning language, you'll be learning social interactions, basic maths and motor skills, play-based learning, hands-on activities, fostering curiosity in young children. Then when you begin primary school, we know that there's development in the mind, development in the person, and so the kindergarten and preschool are meant to encourage this. They develop more social skills, basic literacy and numeracy and cognitive development. And so the pedagogical approaches at this stage continue to focus to a certain extent on play-based learning. Though if I talk to teachers, has anyone, hands up those who are looking at doing teaching in prep through to year 1 and 2? Any hands going up? And so maybe Catherine and Nicole, is it true that play-based learning's being squeezed out because we've got to tell the children they've got to learn this and learn that, and we don't want too much time wasted on play-based learning? Or is that a myth that I'm hearing? Catherine and then Nicole.
I feel like yes and no. I can understand how people can see that. I know that the school I work at, they have like an hour every day where the prep kids play. Like their job for that period is to play. So not necessarily a guided, I want you to learn this through play, but teaching them how to play. I've seen teachers model playing because students, like these kids at this age, don't know how to play effectively and share. For example, they'd set up a little play vet clinic in the corner of the classroom. And yes, you taught them how to play and how to interact. So yeah, I would say like it's not in like your specific curriculum, like, okay, we're going to learn English. What's a game we can do to make this English thing happen? But yeah, it's definitely still there.
Yeah, so we've got the value of both creativity and play. And of course, in high school, we can encourage creativity. And so if we've got a project, we might get the students to come up with different ideas and to be playful about it. In science, in maths, people can be playful about, we might want to do the area of a circle, and so we'll give them circles and come up with ideas, and they can be playful about it. So there's a combination of activities can be useful. Nicole, what's your thoughts on whether play is still a priority in schools or not?
I think it depends on the teacher themselves and their own pedagogy. Having been working in 3 different classrooms, I've got one teacher who's very play focused and does a lot of play with the students, whereas another teacher is very this is the curriculum, this is how it is, and her form of play, I guess, would be to have brain breaks every so often rather than actual play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it very much depends on the teacher themselves.
And I think it's important to be true to yourself, understand what you see as your philosophy of education, what you see as working best for you, accomplishing the goals that you're seeking to accomplish. So that can make big differences. We move on to high school. There's a different pedagogical approach as early high school. Often we try and build strong links to the home and help the students to feel very comfortable. And then when they get to year 9, 10, 11, we encourage them to get more serious. First year of university, we try and offer them a lot of support. And then as they move on into second and third year of university, we try and put a lot more pressure on them to achieve and so on. And then when they do their first year of their masters, in the first few months, we try and help them settle in. And then when they get halfway through, we try and get them serious, and they've got to accomplish a lot more. So you do have these transitions all the way through. And then as you enter adulthood and into the workplace, then you'll also find these sort of pressures. And as you were reading in your public sociology by Germov and Paul textbook on youth transition and culture, there's quite a discussion there on the transitions that take place, and you can look at them a lot further. So we see that the home and the school are places where transitions are taking place. And one of the things that's very important for teachers to recognize is that some of the key transitions are taking place at home. And if you understand the culture of the home, you understand the socioeconomic background of the home, then you can build links with the home environment that are going to be very useful, because as some of these journal articles show, social background and children's development is very, very important. Teaching doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's deeply intertwined with the social context of where children are growing up and learning, and also where their interests are. If they have interests in a particular hobby or sport, or interests in a particular peer group activity, if you can tap into that, then you're going to find a lot more success in teaching children in that age group. So the value of attending to their interests is very important. One thing that stands out to me as a Christian teacher is an interesting article that I read by Clegg and Rowland on kindness in pedagogical practice. That is, you can be so focused on the curriculum and getting things done, and you can meet a teacher, like Nicole said, that's entirely focused on the pedagogy and focused on the curriculum. And then you might find another teacher who feels that kindness is the key thing. That is, taking time to listen to the teacher. Now, the question that was asked by Clegg and Rowland is, the administrators, which teacher would they value most? The one who handed in lots of reports and lots of measuring details and had a very highly developed curriculum, or the one who said, my main goal is to be kind to the children? And I thought that was interesting, because Clegg and Rowland say that it may be the very strict organised teacher actually is valued by the school more. But when you ask the children which teacher they value most, many will say kindness is the priority, the one who listens to me, who cares for me. So in arguing for the value of kindness, Clegg and Rowland say we reject the separation between emotion and reason and organisation, and also gender, boys being organised or whatever, or girls being girly. We say that everyone can be organised and everyone can care for one another, listen to one another, be kind to one another in a holistic approach to education. So students see kindness as a mark of a good teacher, and yet it may be missing from ways in which we describe excellence in teaching, student satisfaction, professional values. So don't forget kindness as another aspect. And we could mention other Christian values like love and joy and hope and valuing identity. So I thought that's interesting in that it's something that's overlooked, and yet families and schools and teachers may see that as another important aspect. And some teachers will value maths and others will have a fear of maths. Some will value language and literature, others will have a fear of it. Some will value music and have a fear of it. But you got to realise in the diverse classroom, all of these can be important experiences. Now, someone has said that some school administrators may focus on the enterprise of schooling and economics of schooling and speed of getting things done and efficiency, but that can miss out on kindness, and that can miss out on caring and all of these other aspects of teaching. Sometimes administrators can be gatekeepers, and they say, we've got to have bright kids going here and good sports kids going here and good music kids going here, instead of being inclusive of all children. And I even heard one teacher say, instead of football being about kicking goals and pushing through, what about sharing the ball and passing it around? So I don't know whether that'll take off, but it shows that there can be different views, can't there? Students often make judgments, say Clegg and Rowland, speaking about kindness, about authenticity. And kindness is part of being real and genuine. And sometimes simply focusing on economics or focusing on gatekeeping, focusing on the mechanics or organisation can be seen as being unkind, not taking. But you've still got to do that. You've got to get the mechanics right and the organisation right. But don't forget kindness, say Clegg and Rowland in their article on kindness. Holistic approaches are very important. So people who've looked at the reason why students fail show that often students feel marginalised, or culturally their culture's left out. We need to listen to the background of the different students and show that we value their background. As Jesus said, love one another. As Jesus said, let the little children come to me. So homes and families, if we find out about their background and value their homes and show kindness and caring to them and understanding, that'll be helpful. And the same with the wider world work. If we show an awareness of different jobs that are out there, different career paths, and encourage students to consider different career paths, then we're going to encourage an awareness of a much wider understanding of the social world around them. Engage with the families, encourage communication, connections with families, have newsletters that you send home, have pictures that you take of the children together doing activities in science and maths, and celebrate children together. Now, these raise questions such as how can we as teachers benefit from understanding the wider society, understanding families, understanding the workplaces? How can we promote an understanding of families' cultural diversity? These raise questions. What role does the school and other social institutions play in enlarging an awareness of culture, enlarging awareness of diversity, enlarging a need for care and kindness one to another? Thirdly, how can teachers better understand ways to develop relationships with families and parents? Maybe you could go and stand at the gate before school or after school, get to know the parents, and share one with another, have an afternoon tea sometime. What attitudes and actions can promote kindness and therefore stability? And what sort of neglect promotes instability when children or parents feel left out? So, what are the roles that families, wider environments, workplaces can play, and how, as we as teachers, can connect? This can be part of your philosophy of education, as I've mentioned. A philosophy of education is a dynamic document that develops over time. You could write some notes down there. You could prepare the resume that one day you'll hand out. And when you apply for a school teaching job, they'll often ask, what is your philosophy of education? To which you'll reply, what is the philosophy of education you want? Well, we're a Christian school, or we are a Montessori school, or we are a school. And as you listen to what they say, you can write a philosophy of education which connects your views about education and pedagogy with the views of education and pedagogy held by the school. A well-developed philosophy of education reflects your beliefs, your values, your principles, what you believe about teaching, about learning. It serves as a guide for your instructional practices. It's got to be authentic about who you are, but it's also got to recognize if there's weaknesses. How can you develop strategies that balance your weaknesses and also build on the strengths that you have? It could state your overarching goals for students in terms of not only the intellectual development, but also their emotional, social, ethical, and values development. Often it'll include statements about a student-centered approach rather than simply a top-down approach, but at the same time, you might balance that with the need for structure and clear structure and guidelines for the students. It can emphasize the importance of tailoring instruction to individual needs while also realizing the needs of all of the students in the classroom. It can include a statement on your teaching methods, those that you find to be effective, and you could include examples there, and you could have sample lessons that you could show how effective you've been. You could discuss how you would plan to engage students from different backgrounds, not only in critical thinking and problem solving, but also those students who are struggling to fit in or those who feel bullied. You could include curriculum design and content, including ways that you show it's up to date and relevant. You could include the way in which you assess and you read feedback. You could describe how you plan to provide timely, constructive feedback. You could certainly talk about classroom management and discipline and behavioural issues. So all of these can be included, including ways in which today we're talking about connecting with parents and families and also connecting with workplaces, showing that you're aware of the diversity of workplaces. Now, in a Christian philosophy of education, for a teacher in a Christian school, you could talk about your faith and the foundations of your faith. David and then Gip, what are your thoughts on a Christian philosophy of education? What sort of things would you talk about there if you're wanting to include that? And in your assignments, you could have a paragraph or so on a Christian philosophy of education, and even better, you could have a scholarly reference or two or three that you got from Google Scholar or the online college library resources. David Southwood and then Gip, what are some Christian aspects of a philosophy of education that would be useful including?
I would say, with the Christian philosophy, this is certainly my own bits of my own opinion on it, but it's like instilling Christian values in your students. And I don't necessarily just mean like, say you're in a state school, for example, and I don't necessarily just mean like evangelical type values, but I mean like those basic ones of treating others as you wish to be treated, loving your neighbor as yourself, and teaching like those Christian virtues of like diligence, patience, understanding, compassion, love, those sorts of values, and just because those values can be used by pretty much anyone to develop their own character and be better students and be better equipped for the future.
And this is particularly important in a secular school. And I've taught in secular schools for years and years. And I've found that as a Christian teacher, often you want to keep a bit quiet about being a Christian teacher for as long as you can. And you want to talk about values like diligence and caring for one another as much as you can. Because when they find out that you're a Christian, then you'll find that in a secular school, there'll be some who will want to take up a bit of an axe to grind against you. And so it's important that you've set the ground already, because after they find out you're a Christian, it can take you 6 months to then continue to talk about diligence and caring for one another, and eventually you can make the ground up. What's your experience along that line, and what are your thoughts along that line, David?
I think it's very true. If I might share it, just like the only experience I've had of that is within my own friendship circle, because a lot of my friends aren't Christians, and only a handful of them have figured it out that I am, and they were very surprised to learn that about me. And you see like their attitude sort of change. So like they start testing the waters and start asking you questions of like where the line stops. It's like they just don't see you as a normal person anymore. That there's like a facade that they have to put on, or a mask they have to wear to suit your standards. If that makes sense.
Oh,
That's
very much.
my
I think,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I had to go through, like, it took me a while just to convince them, no, I'm just like everyone else. I'm not gonna, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just, it's me, David. You went to school with me for a while. It's all good. Same person, no different.
Yeah. So you want to be real first, genuine, authentic, and then you want to do the whole discussion about what you believe about evolution or eternal life and all of
Yeah.
that. Kip, what are your thoughts on Christian values in school? And then maybe Catherine and Chris.
Um,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Gip, yeah.
Okay. I think it's a way you can start it is like just begin with like character building. Teach students like what it like even brainstorm like what it means to like have a like good character. And you can like brainstorm that as a class. And then try to promote that into the classroom. So like having good communication, and like teamwork, sense of community, and how you can not only just be a good character or a good person in the classroom, how you can do that in the playground, how you can interact with teachers and students, and as well as at home and in the community as well. Just teaching them how to, be a good person in society. Not basically, because even if you're not in a Christian school, you can just you can still show like love and that type of stuff in a school setting that might be not be a Christian school, if that makes sense.
Oh, very much. That's so valued everywhere. Catherine, your thoughts on Christian values?
Yeah, like David said, it's important in like whether you're in a Christian school or not to just present those values of things like the fruit of the spirit and encouraging children to show kindness to each other and to have that relationship with each other that within the class. So whether it's a Christian school community or not. I think that those values are highly important and also highly valued by society. So, yeah.
And aspects like empathy, how would the other person feel? Aspects like hope, how can we develop a positive atmosphere rather than focusing on the negatives? And so Christians have such a lot to contribute. Chris, what are your thoughts? And then Nicole, on a development of these positive values. Chris?
Yeah. What do I say? Yeah. So specifically on the values part, I definitely think it's I can say a lot about Christian teaching, but definitely the teacher's position as a Christian to not only uphold Christian values, but also in the way we teach our content to be showing students why it's, how would you say? Like we're not being paid to convert the students, but in a world that there's no neutrality, even the content is set against Christ. It'd be important not only in the implicit value, because it'd be very easy to say, "Oh, I'm a Christian" by being nice to the students, but it is very much the way we teach our content. And yeah, also it'll come into it how we deal with homosexual students, this type of thing, where I think like it'd be very interesting. We're talking about like being a Christian teacher in a state school. I don't think you would be able to. If you're standing firm in your faith and not caving, you wouldn't be able to positively affirm that type of behavior. Because I've been in a state school environment where it's just push them, push them, push now. We have like transsexual teachers, homosexual teachers, where they're pushing their agenda and their values. So I think it'd be very, very hard to be a Christian teacher.
And certainly if we can push values like care and concern and listening, then we break those stereotypes which see Christians as judgmental or narrow or something like that. Nicole, your thoughts on Christian values?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the golden rule that treat others as you would like to be treated yourself, and using that as a foundational value for the students as well as other staff members that you work with. You don't necessarily have to say, it's not so much a matter of saying I'm a Christian, but showing that you are a Christian. It's more about being who you are rather than pushing this is what I am.
Being authentic, being real, being genuine, listening,
that's
and
right.
showing that you are a caring, concerned, adaptable, listening person. You haven't got it all right or all together, but you are caring and concerning. Now, certainly one of the other things that you can include, of course, is show an awareness of different theories of development. And so Piaget, show an awareness at age levels. Children do show change from the early childhood to scaffolding, concrete discovery learning, observing, and then play-based continues through asking open-ended questions. And then Vygotsky has got so much to offer. I encourage you, if you've got opportunity, to include some work by and on Vygotsky and his social cultural theory, which encourages us to develop participation and scaffolding, and to encourage the students to work with us, encourage agency in the students, self-regulation, imagination. Others like Rogoff talk about the student development aided by activities such as physical and social settings and the cultural and social and historical customs, and also by practices and rituals that come from the social. Ron Frenner, ecological theory, talks about the influences of relationships and layers of influences. Bowlby's attachment theory is very useful for developing an understanding of the way attachments and relationships and warm, consistent care are so important. Erickson, of course, has his stages of development, which are really valuable and useful. And then there's sociological theories like Bourdieu's idea of social capital, which has to do with relationships as well. Spirituality, there's a great deal written on this idea of the ultimate idea of great concerns about the ultimate that can be so very, very important. So I encourage you, if you've got some material on that can be incredibly valuable. And so, even this last week, I was reading about some great material from David Bentley Hart on what it means to be human. And if you didn't want to read it, you could actually watch the videos by David Bentley Hart on what it means to have a spirituality that is aware of what it means to be a human person that is spiritual as well as being a fully developed human person. So if we were to go to Google Scholar and look at David Bentley Hart's writings there as well, you'd find some great resources on what it means to be a spiritual person. The Montessori approach is also very useful, and you might want to explore various aspects of the Montessori approach. And then there are Christian approaches which talk about people being made in the image of God, the Imago Dei, which means that children are capable of being good. Children are capable of being creative in a very good way. So value the good that's in a child, and that will be very, very valuable as well. So let's apply this then to your assignment 2, where you're asked to select a theory, and you can include in there a paragraph or so on Christian perspectives. You should include a paragraph or so on your own experiences, and you could date that as my experience in year 8, or you could date it on the 14th of the 8th. I journal reflect on my experiences in year 8. And then you could write 5 or 10 pages on that and just choose the best few sentences or paragraph or half paragraph and include that. And then you might develop this approach further in years to come. And I put forward an exercise last week that you might want to continue to pursue. And in that exercise, you're encouraged to develop journal writing. So take some time to jot down memories of your educational experiences, and that could give you empathy for children from different backgrounds. Some are doing well, and every child's going to meet some challenges there. David, how are you going with assignment 1, this task 1? What theorist have you chosen? What's working for you? And then Gip, what theory have you chosen? What's working for you? David first.
I'm still looking just to decide on a theorist. I'm still doing conflict theory. I've looked at I've got a bunch of different references for different theorists. I'm still working out which one I'm going to choose. I've also trying to work out what experience from my own educational experience is going to look like and how that's going to be included in this assignment. That's the part I'm struggling with the most to write, to be honest.
And with your own experience, I encourage you to write a journal with lots of experiences, even if it's brief and not well written, and then to think about what are the top 3, say, of these, what's been most significant, and then develop those a little bit further, partly for the assignment, but partly for yourself, partly for your philosophy of education. And out of this, you might even start to develop a philosophy of education as another aspect of either this assignment or future assignments. Gip, and then Denisha. Gip first. How are you going with assignment 2?
Good. I'm starting. I am tossing up between the interactionism one, so the symbolic interactionism, and the social interactionalism, if I said that correctly. And I haven't chosen a my own experience yet that would go well with that theory. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of those are good. And I mean, I think if you took social interactionism, put it into Google Scholar, you'd quickly get some results. So Scholar Google, and then put in over there, that's disappeared on me. And then you put in, say, social interactionism, and then you put in to it something like pedagogy,
Okay.
and then did a exploration, pedagogy, school, teaching, something like that. And then you found some resources, and then any that have got on the side here, you can then go to them and you can read them. So you quickly get, and if you've got sort of 8 to 12 of these resources, now of course this one focuses on physical education, so you'd have to decide whether you want to go there. But in the introduction, you've got quite a bit of a broad discussion of what is happening, how students communicate verbally, group work. So I think that's quite interesting there. So yeah, same with symbolic interactionism. You can put that into Google Scholar. You'd find lots of resources that you could then go through, and then you got a copy of the reference here. So part of the challenge is to work quickly, gather these references. So you got the reference, you can read the resource, do a summary of it as well. And so, yeah, great resources that you could really do well. Denisha, what about yourself?
I'm thinking of doing, well, not thinking, I have kind of started on it on functionalism, and
Yeah.
The theorist, is it Durkheim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Gip, I don't have a like a specific moment from school just yet, but yeah, that's what I've got a plan for so far.
And you could argue that having clear structures and being aware of the functions really helps children to do well at school, helps you to do well at school. And the more you can understand the structures and functions of society, the better you can do. Where are the good jobs? What do you have to do to get the good jobs? All of the structures and functions, better we understand them, the better we can do. And Durkheim is a great starting point for that. And you'd find lots of others. Sarah Morland, what are you going to do for assignment 2, and what's working well?
Hi, so I have been planning, I've just started writing like my introduction, and I've got a whole plan out. So I'm going to do symbolic interactionism, and I'm looking specifically at 2 main theorists, but there were so many people that were coming up in all my research, so it was really hard, but I mainly just picked the George Herbert Mead, I'm not sure how do you pronounce that, because he was the main one coming up. And then I found some really good information about the Herbert Bloomer. Don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but there were a lot of other names tossed around, but they were the 2 that I was finding some really good stuff that I can relate to my main idea. So I like those 2 theorists to go with the theory. And then I was looking at it as in the whole social interaction, and how my personal experience, I've relied a lot on forming connections, and like my best memories from school have been like that interactions with teachers and peers, and I've been very sporty. So I've also related it to the social constructivism theory by Vygotsky, and how we rely on social interactions and stuff, and that's really much. I haven't really written a lot, so I don't want to give too much away without writing about it, but they're just my main ideas that I want to look into. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. I really like those ideas, and I think that'll really go well. So are there any questions about the assignment? Any thoughts about what'll go well? I think you really need 8 to 12 or more scholars. You really need to cite 2 or 3 scholars in a paragraph if you really want to go well. And you need to have one united argument. So go back over and edit your work so that you have an argument that draws together, that says either strong understanding of the structures and functions in society and in a school can help the teacher and help the students to do well, and some examples from your own experience, or conflict theory, having an awareness of the conflicting background pressures on students can help the teacher, can help the student, and in your own experience, awareness of these conflicting background, or symbolic interaction, understanding the symbols, the language, the words, the interactions, and what theorists are saying about these can help teachers and students. From my own experience, I've found that. And obviously you keep a bit of journal of your experiences, but you choose maybe 3 of those experiences and you briefly write about those, and then you look for scholars using Google Scholar or using the college library resources. You're able to put together your argument in the assignment. So I wish you well with that. If you have any questions at all on your assignment, then certainly get in touch. And if you have any questions about those things that we're covering, certainly get in touch with us as well. And think about, how's it apply in the classroom? What difference can these things make if I understand the dynamics that's going on, the social dynamics that are going on? And of course, other subjects you'll learn about psychology of education, other subjects you'll learn about the specific topics, literacy, maths, that you're working with, and then all of it ties together to make a good, effective teacher. And then you need other people around you that you can share your good days with, but your tough days with, and you need strategies for coping with every experience that you face on the way through, to keep a positive attitude going. And being Christians, having our relationship with God and Christ can be helpful as well. So let me pray for you as we draw this lesson in week 4 to a close. I look forward to seeing the good essays that I'm sure you'll write, and I look forward to hearing the good testimonies about all that God is doing in your lives. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to reflect today on the importance of families in the development of our children, and the ways in which differences and diversities in family and culture can be better understood by us as teachers, so that we can be more sympathetic and learn more about the diversity of children in our classes. Help us to be caring and kind to all of the different children from all of these different backgrounds, that we might be more empathetic, more Christ-like in our approach to children and their learning. Help us to encourage them. Help us to positively communicate the fullness of love and care and compassion. Help us to keep a positive attitude, a positive atmosphere and culture in our classes, so that we can all understand the excitement and enthusiasm that we can have about the areas that we are learning in as teachers and students, we pray. Amen. So thank you, each one. It's a joy to catch up with you again. And it's been wonderful to hear about how you're going, how you're pressing forward with your learning. And I look forward to catching up again next week in 7 days' time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.